And we are live. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our stream today with actress Wendee Lee. Welcome. We like to welcome you to our podcast, Anime Aikoka Egypt Live. It's been a while. It's been really a while. Like I've been trying to contact you to get you as a guest in our podcast for quite some time.
I'm slippery like that.
Yeah.
Just like Faye Valentine.
Yeah, it's really been a while because when we started, we at the beginning when we started our podcast, we were more focused on Arabic voice actors more, and once we start branching and getting like to to like offer some VA from United States to join us, I thought about the traditional shows. Like okay, so Yu Yu Hakusho, the first show we started with. So that's why we hosted we had Chuck Hooper with us as a guest, the first guest, and after Chuck Hooper it was Linda Young, of course, actress Linda Young, and then I was like, what will be more iconic? Like, what is the most iconic English dub character that's like can represent what English dub is? And then I was like, Cowboy Bebop, yeah, Cowboy Bebop, of course, it is a show. If anyone want to talk about the English dub, it is a show to talk about it. It's more of like more appropriate to the language, like a show about cowboys and jazz, a lot of jazz music. And then I was like, okay, why Faye? Let's get Faye Valentine. And then I immediately start looking to how to contact you, and then we are here today.
We did it.
We did it finally. Yeah. So
Well, we're coordinating from all the way across the world to do
yeah,
it. So, and by the mother of invention through the pandemic, we've found a way to all connect via these platforms like Zoom. So it's pretty exciting.
yeah, it's actually quite convenient that like since we are speaking about it, my team, the team who helped me behind the scene, are all in Egypt. I am in Germany. You are in the United States. So it's more of like across continents, like three continents literally, working through three continents. So once
I love
again,
that.
yeah, thank you. And once again, I like to welcome you, and I like to apologize that I don't have my camera. It's a whole situation, so let's not talk about this.
I will miss seeing you, but we are connected nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you. So how is everything? How is life lately?
Life is so different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually quite good right now. I just heard today that California has 74% of all citizens vaccinated.
Mm,
So our COVID climate is a little safer.
that's good.
Um, I'm finding a way to make all of my work connections happen through the safety of my home for the majority of the time. So I'm mostly working remotely via platforms like Zoom and Skype
That's
and
actually one of the things that I noticed when you recorded the video for our publicity for the publicity, and I saw that you have your headphone set. You have like sort of a home studio a little bit, like even with the Chrome in the background.
Yep, we went to lockdown in let's see, it was St. Patrick's Day, so that's March 2019.
Mm,
Is that right? Or 2020? Was that right? No, 2020. Yes,
mm.
of course. And so all work stopped. Everybody was told to stay home. We didn't really know what was going to happen. We thought maybe it would just be a couple weeks of
Yeah,
being
that's what
quarantined.
most of the people thought at the beginning. Yeah, that was the
And then
same
as
for me in Germany as
right,
well. Yeah,
same sort of lockdown. It seemed temporary in the beginning,
yeah, yeah.
and then we realized it was long term. I actually had a moment where I thought, only 2 weeks? I want 2 more weeks to just take a break
Yeah,
and deal with
that's
this.
for me. I was doing my master thesis at that time, and then for me I was like, that's great. I don't have to go to the university to work on my thesis, so I can just chill. And then I had to wait 4 months to actually continue my thesis, so it was a lot of inconvenience.
Wow. Everything that was in limbo for those
Yeah,
several months. That was very difficult. And at the same time, for all of us freelance voice artists, people in post production, we only are paid when we work. So suddenly all the money was drying up.
Oh yeah, that's
And
correct. Do you have a syndicate for voice actors, by the way?
I don't even know what that would be.
Yeah, because
We
I believe in Egypt, like most of the VAs in Egypt are enrolled in like the actors syndicate. So they get what the normal actors, like any drama actors or live action actors, get basically.
like they continue with a living wage or something?
It's more they have like pension when they retire. There will be sort of a pension, and they have, of course, health insurance because it's more. The syndicate have its own health insurance, sort of.
Wow, listen to that. Boy, our country has a lot of growing to do. We still, it's so tragic because we have monetized healthcare.
Yes.
So the whole pyramid, the whole paradigm, I should say, of healthcare for us in the West is just a mess, as everyone knows, because it's getting better, but that is usually only under a democratic
Yeah.
administration. It's better, unfortunately, but the whole way it's structured is that there's incentive to keep people sick and ill because the pharmaceutical industry is the strongest lobby in our country, and so they want people ill, so they're constantly pushing and peddling drugs, and then people are forced to buy the drugs to stay
Yeah,
alive.
yeah.
So it's very tragic, as opposed to your country and most of Europe and most other developed nations. The incentive is to keep your population well because the government has to pay for illness. So the whole thing's inverted. It's just a mess over here. And, it's really tragic because it's the free market that really encouraged such a doomed paradigm. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's sort of the short stick of the capitalist
Right.
regime, mainly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in our country, people don't often look at capitalism with a critical eye because not everybody is a world traveler in our country, and
Yes.
they don't really understand and don't get exposed to other systems that work so well, inherently focused on taking care of their population. So I'm very much a health advocate. My sort of hobby is health and wellness and mental wellness, and I'm sort of the shaman, fairy vegan godmother that takes care of everybody in the studio. When anyone's ill, I have herbs to help them and vitamins and nutritional therapy. So I'm very interested and invested in wellness and all that goes into it. And that includes a lot of corruption in our food and drug industry. So yeah, a lot of other countries have a sort of an advantage for the individual's health, rather than in the US, where it comes down to a whole lot of commercialism that persuades people to have really awful diets, and then a system that keeps them sort of encompassed with constantly taking drugs to offset all the conditions caused by the food. So it's so sad.
Yeah.
I really love cooking and whole life living and wellness, and I take great pleasure in nurturing people and loving them through wellness.
Just to jump on one of the things you said also, since we were talking about traveling, you came to Egypt before. You said to me that you spent your honeymoons in Egypt.
Yes, I did. And it was when my husband and I were engaged, we dreamed, and we were dreaming very big, and we decided, where in the world have you always wanted to go that we've both not experienced? And we both had a wish list. And when we shared it, my top choice was Egypt. And I needed to get to the pyramids and to all of the ancient monuments. And my husband was very interested in Egypt, and his first choice was Greece.
Oh,
so
not very far.
It was fantastic. We started in the most ancient world and then went to the more modern ancient world in Greece, and it was really a chronological history sojourn, and it also encompassed my favorite topic, which is archaeoastronomy, which is not what Zahi Hawass professes. It's an alternative worldview of the ancient timeline of history, and that is being challenged by the recent ways that monuments and artifacts are being dated. And we're now finding that the origins of ancient Earth are far older than we're told. And that's a much bigger topic, but it's something that I'm very interested in and I'm constantly researching.
And definitely ancient Egypt is like the go-to, like because it's so mysterious, since we know too much, but still we don't or almost don't know anything. So
That's
the more we know, the more we know that we don't know.
Exactly. And honestly, we're realizing that it's designed that way because many artifacts need to remain in the earth undiscovered, so we can apply a developing, modernizing way of dating and treating artifacts and preserving them. If we just dug everything up hundreds of years ago or 100 years ago even, or even 50 years ago, things would degrade and we would lose the treasure itself with ancient ways of applying technology to archaeology.
Yeah.
That field is developing all the time, as I'm sure you know. And so we want artifacts to be discovered gradually so we can apply the most modern science to it.
And some country, they do like when they do the historical reservation, they restore the ancient artifacts the way it was back in the days. Meanwhile, it's not the point. Like you should have see it in like how the time affected it, how it looks now. It's sort of sleep, like it steals a little bit from the magic, a little bit from the magic away. Because if, for example, one of the most famous Egyptian artifacts are the mask of Tutankhamun, of course, like
Yes.
you know, because since it is gold, it doesn't get rusted, it doesn't get dusted or anything. But since people see this, they think that, oh, this is all the Egyptian culture was. They are like that kind of polished, really shiny, golden masks, you know. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
there were most of the Egyptians at that time, they were poor, like they were farmers or like, you know, and not everyone lived in this kind of golden sarcophagus,
Opulence,
golden,
right?
yeah. So it's a little bit funny when I hear that this kind of things about artifacts, because I love to see a lot of National Geographic and documentaries, which is also one of the topics that we can discuss, because that's one of the things that I don't know about United States, but this is one of the things that Arabic voice actors actually work in. They work in commenting on documentaries.
Oh, okay.
Because most of the documentaries,
narration,
yeah. Because most of the documentaries are narrated. Most of them are from the BBC or CNN or even National Geographic, are more narrated by English narrator. English-speaking narrator.
Right.
So when we dub it to Arabic, normally they look for a voice actor and instead of an actual narrator to narrate to keep it interesting. So that's actually one of the things that a lot of voice actors in Egypt work in. I mean, not in Egypt. I mean, in Arabic countries.
I love that. Yes, Arabic countries, because I'm thinking now of all the times I've heard Arabic voiceover and how beautiful and classical the voices sound, and how well punctuated and just how articulate the voices are. It seems to be a very classical, formal sort of training for many of the narrative voices that I've heard.
That's actually one of the things that also we were, because the first question, literally, we didn't go into the interview yet, we're still chatting.
Because we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, so the first question actually was how did you start getting, or how did your career start? But my comment about what we were talking about, most of the actors we already had with us as a guest, they started more of academical study. They were actually studying in the Institute of Acting, which is normally it is for for theater actors. So they were more of theatrical actors before they start being voice actors.
Yes, and you can hear it in their technique. Definitely, that makes perfect sense. I'm also thinking of the light and sound shows that I was able to see at Luxor and the Great Pyramid, and how classical and boomy and beautiful those voices were, kind of in a slice of an older, maybe a nostalgia that is in those voices. And I'm sure they don't get to update them very often, because those are big shows that are presented every night. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, when you go to these beautiful monuments in Egypt, there's an option to see these light and sound shows at night with
Mm.
beautiful projections.
Yeah,
And
in Arabic we call it الصوت والضوء, just for people to relate. What is it called in
oh, I
Arabic?
love that.
Yeah.
And that's the style, or the whole show is called that.
This is the show. The show itself is called الصوت والضوء, which is a quite famous sightseeing for tourists, because
Yes.
actually they have it and now they have it more. They are trying to make it more public, so it's not just the pyramid. So actually, you go to the Temple of Luxor, for example. They have a show. They have one in the Panorama of October.
Yes, I've seen that, the one
Yeah,
at Luxor.
yeah. They have it now. They are trying to do it more in more locations, because in Egypt, of
That's
course, we have
great.
so many
Like by the
locations.
colossals would be great, or at
Yeah,
Hatshepsut's monuments, that would be
yeah.
beautiful.
Actually, El Dir El Bahari, the Hatshepsut temple. They are actually they started already a show there, a light show there.
Oh, love to see that. That's and that's very healing, because we know that there was an awful tragedy that happened there many years ago. So that would be a healing
Yeah,
act to bring people there for those shows. That's great.
and
Yeah.
actually, that's one of the. I don't wanna. I'm trying. I'm trying
Let's
to.
talk about Egypt. I'm
Yeah,
interested. It's one
I'm
of my
trying to
favorite
get back
topics.
to anime stuff, because people are here to hear about anime, but this is something that I'm really fascinated about, because yeah, unfortunately, not a lot of Egyptians like interested in this kind of ancient stuff, you know. But for me,
Sure.
it is really one of the things that I'm really fascinated by. Like, for example, you know, they call it Jasaro, actually, the Holy of the Holy, which
Yes.
is the name of the temple of Hatshepsut, and it's actually carved into the stone. So it is
Yes.
not built; it is carved. So they carve it in the mountain, a whole temple. So it is. This is how magnificent this place is. They didn't build it stone by stone like the pyramids. They literally carved it into the mountain, which is that.
Carved it out.
Yeah,
Wow. I
but
don't think I even knew that. Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
amazing. And also, I'm fascinated, of course, because Hatshepsut was one of the few female pharaohs who was incredibly productive in her lifetime. She was a profusive builder
yeah,
and very successful as a woman. And it's very interesting, because few female pharaohs adopted the male wardrobe, costumes,
yeah, yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually very like you will never find a feminine statue of Hatshepsut. She doesn't have any
right.
feminine statue. All of them with the beard, and even some of them like bare chest. They have like a bare chest statue. If she is like a male, so
Yes,
uh, it's quite exciting, like how she was, because she was actually very feminine. Like she had like jewelry, and she had like perfumes, and she even have had like some people speculate that she had a lover in the palace. So
right.
she was not just you know, more of a tomboy. She was not a tomboy. She was actually
No,
a feminine like queen, but at the same time, because that's what the people want to see. They want to see a pharaoh who's like strong, who's like really precise, and like sometimes cruel. That's what she showed them.
yes,
But meanwhile, she didn't let it affect what she is look like for real.
that's right. It's so interesting, because the success of ancient Egypt lasted for over 2,000 years, completely unchanged. So there were very clear archetypes and rituals that were maintained all those years, because it worked.
Yeah,
And the population understood it, and the education was reinforced through the iconic images and the processions and the constant festivals, and the way that Egyptians followed the seasons and were much closer to living to the earth's rhythms. So all of that was unchanged for such a long time, and was
because
so
for us, most of our lifetime, or most of the Egyptian, for example, on Earth time, ancient Egyptian, I mean, was related with the Nile. So how the Nile affected their life directly, because if there is no flood for this year, for example, so there is no irrigation, there is
nope,
no food, there
no
is no wheat,
harvest.
there is not no harvest.
Yes,
Yeah. So basically,
yes,
yeah, it's a very that's why it's really fascinating how they were like in touch with nature, and even the depiction of gods, how They have like the goddess of earth and the goddess of sun and so on, all of that. I don't want to get the people bored because
I think it's quite interesting. I think
yeah,
it's okay we talk about this stuff. And listen, this is refreshing for me. It's my favorite topic, and I love having a chance to speak to someone who's native to Cairo in Egypt. So please let us take time to enjoy that. Actually, I can segue that, but before I do, there's a comment I
sure.
wanted to make. Since you're in Germany, I wanted to just point out that there's often a lot of expeditions that are funded through Germany that are
Yes,
going
that's
on
true. That's true. Yeah.
in Egypt, or always have been. So there's a very strong connection there, and ironically, with Japan too. Um, I,
Yes.
I have a great story for you in the Great Pyramid that will get us back to our Japanese connection. And I had my opportunity to get my trip to go into the Great Pyramid, which was truly one of the highlights of my whole life, something I had been dreaming of since I was probably 10 or 11 years old. It's an obsession I had. I used to draw pyramids and sphinx and little Ankh symbols, and I just was drawn to the subject matter so strongly my whole life. Little did I know it would end up actually changing the course of my life, and my honeymoon would be spent there. But once I finally did get to go into Cairo, we weren't allowed to go into the pyramid. It was on the morning after we
Mm.
arrived. And when you land in Cairo and you start driving, we stayed at the Mena House. My favorite.
Okay, that's very, very close to the pyramids.
It's my favorite place in Cairo. Love it. Um,
A lot of historical Egyptian drama were filmed there
I
because
love that.
it's very kind of for the lack of a better word, very, when you think about like Egypt in the 20s, this is the Mina
Yes.
house, literally the Mina
Oh,
house. Yeah.
so elegant, so beautiful. And from our room, we could see the Great Pyramid and the capstones right from where we were. But as you're driving from the airport, getting to the Mena House, the pyramids come closer and closer and closer into view. And I
Yeah.
was jumping out of the seat, dying to get in. And I was so disappointed we couldn't go that evening. But for people that don't know, there's a limit on how many people are allowed to go in every day. Our breath, our oils, our sweat, all of that they find affects all of the ancient stones and artifacts. So we have to be very careful regulating how many people go in and go out of many of these monuments.
Mm.
So once I finally got in the next day, and it wasn't in the morning, I was so disappointed. We got up early, and I thought that was going to be our first stop. We had a lovely tour guide that toured with us our whole time that we were there, and he didn't understand how important it was to me. So we went to the great museum,
Mm.
Cairo Museum, and then I was jumping out of my skin. Finally got to get into the pyramids in the afternoon, made our way through the Grand Gallery and into the Queen's Chamber, and finally into the King's Chamber, where there is still a remaining sarcophagus, which is a topic of much debate because it could not have been brought in. The openings are too small for it. It may have been built
Oh,
within.
yeah, you are talking about the one. I forgot what is the name of the place, but there is a place that's famous because, there is a debate about this. How did they get the sarcophagus in? Because the sarcophagus is so huge and the Rome is very
Yes,
small. So either they
yes,
build it, but it is all bulk of stone. So how did they carve it?
yes.
Did they carve it inside? How did they get? Yeah, there is a
Like
lot of.
red granite. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. So when we had the King's Chamber to ourselves, my husband and I, we did a little bit of chanting and tested the acoustics. It was phenomenal. The sound seemed to move in a circular pattern around us, and no one was there. So I crawled into the sarcophagus, and I laid down and I assumed the position of the pharaoh, and I was just kind of feeling the energy and taking in the moment. And I could hear people breathing. And all of a sudden, I opened my eyes and I was surrounded by a group of Japanese tourists who were looking in at me laughing. Everywhere I have traveled, I have encountered Japanese tourists. So that gets us back to our Japan connection.
yes. So speaking of Japan, but since we also touched on this, so did you record any recent anime in your home studio?
Oh, yes, every day. I was recording yesterday. I've been recording ever since 20. let's see. I think I had my studio set up in about 4 weeks. It took me a little longer than most. Most people
Mm.
had it ready to go in about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but our industry was still figuring out how do we put together a remote recording session from people's home studios. And as I was saying,
Mm.
employment was drying up, but we had to invest a lot of money into new equipment.
Yes.
Fortunately, my husband's a musician, I'm a singer, and we already had a really good vocal mic that I use for singing,
That's great.
a good Rode NTK mic. So my husband said, let's just move that into your closet. So my bedroom closet became my new studio booth. And I had to buy a preamp. I had to get some cords. I had to have a few engineers work with me and test the sound of my room, make a few adjustments. I bought some moving blankets to cover my closet doors. As it turns out, I didn't need any of that. All I really needed was my good microphone, the preamp.
Yes.
I have a really good Macintosh desktop computer. And then the real important thing for actors is a hardwired Ethernet connection. So the
Yes.
internet connection is stable, right?
Yeah, because it's very inconvenient when you're in the middle of like recording something and suddenly the Wi-Fi is down or something like that.
And it happens a lot, mostly when I'm directing and I'm doing long 8-9 hour days on Skype or Zoom. It's actually really fatiguing. It's very hard work, but we can do it. And my job is to sort of be the cheerleader when I'm directing and keep everybody motivated and keep the jokes going and try to make our labor of love as fun as we can. So I'm always very focused on setting a creative tone and mood that makes everybody feel safe enough to try great ideas and take risks and still be super efficient and move quickly. Yeah, I just want to say one other thing. The way that our ADR sessions, which is automated dialogue replacement, what we do, dubbing our voices to the picture that's already complete, a full production. What was I just going to tell you? Now I've lost my thought. I completely lost my thought, but that's okay. It's just shop talk about how we made all the recording stuff work. And within about 4 to 6 weeks, we were back into full production. And I have done 2 or 3 games I've directed, maybe 4, a live action film, animated film, and I think 3 different series I've done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all done. Vivi Fluorite song, that's out and available. I think that's through Funimation and
oh yeah,
Crunchyroll.
Vivi. Yes, I actually watched it Vivi recently, but of course not the dubbed one because I don't think
So
it was out at that time. It is so
I've been
interesting.
running into a lot of AI shows, and
Yeah,
Vivi is a
of
very
course,
advanced AI.
you did the archive, which is, I'm not gonna spoil the show, but like it's really important character. Yeah, it's quite.
Oh, that's right. You know my character. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, because
I
like
thought
the first,
same thing.
most of the
I
people
thought
who
she was
see
sort
the
of an instant. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's fine. Because most of the people who see the first few episodes, they will think, okay, it's side character, it will just disappear, like all other AI characters disappear, but it will come out, it will come back.
I thought the same thing. I'm with you, Ahmed. I thought, oh, okay, well, this is a little incidental voice I get to fill in for, and the producers actually had a plan in place that, as you say, unfolds as you watch the series.
Since I didn't watch the dub, I have to ask you. I don't know whether you know this or not. Did they dub the songs? Because like Vivi really had really good songs.
Some really good songs. That was a contention of debate for 50% of the time. Actually, the whole time we were recording, it was on the fence. Was Aniplex going to use the Japanese songs, or were we going to redo the songs? And we cast all singers for the singing roles, in case we were going to do the songs. And as it turned out, they decided to pass. There is a slight chance, and it's been some time now, so I would need to check in with my producers, but they said possibly we would do the songs later and include them in the DVD release. But it's been some time now, and I haven't heard anything, and I don't know if the DVD's out yet. If it is, then that's that. They're not going to do it. If it's not out yet, there may be a chance. There was some discussion about it.
Because a part of it's literally the name of the show, Velvet song. I don't know
it's a very hard word. Fluorite. Song.
Yeah, fluorite
is a kind of stone, a mineral. Yeah.
So
the shining, like the green color of Vivi's eyes, is what fluorite looks like. Yeah.
Like fluorescence, something like fluorescence. Okay, because I worked with fluorescence before. So
that's true. I hadn't thought of it that way. It is like fluorescence. Yeah.
So the thing is, at some point I'm not gonna spoil the show because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, because it's a really good show and it's really worth watching. And since there is an English dub, so no one have any excuses. Like if people are waiting, if any English speaking person watching and like they are waiting for it to get dubbed, it's already out. So it is one of the things really hard of the series, the song. When I hear this, like if someone told me, "Oh, the heart of the show is the song," and I would be like, "This is really cringy." But in Vivi, it makes sense. It really makes sense how her song will change everything basically, and one of the songs really made me tear up, like how the emotion in the singer voice really got me, and then I was really like I start tearing up a little bit because it was so emotional. Yeah. So that's why,
Honestly, that is why I wanted to do the music, because I felt like we could emulate the emotion even more. I wanted to take it into an even more kind of human zone, showing the development that Vivi experiences throughout the series. And the timelines change a lot, so there's a lot of time that passes.
Yeah.
Much more so than just average years. Yeah. So I feel as Western singers, as American pop singers, that we have the ability to really emote and put that into the vocal. So I was hoping to do just that.
Since we already on the topic of singing, you already sang in some animes, like of course most famous Haruhi Suzumiya, of course.
Yeah.
So can you talk about this? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, well, I came into studio work as a singer. That was my acclimation was really, and I was more or less recruited from a music engineer who would work part-time in between tours. He would work in a local studio in Hollywood. They were working on anime, and he asked if I wanted to come and observe some of the recording, because he knew I had all these crazy voices that I did, and that I did impersonations, and I sang, and I had all this background that lent itself to recording and creating new character voices. So he allowed me to come in and audit an audition session at Intersound, this wonderful studio in Hollywood that's no longer there. But during that experience, while I was auditing the auditions, there was a lapse. There was a gap in the schedule, and the team turned to my friend Chris Anson and said, "Well, your friend who's observing as an actor, would she like to audition?" And I just went, "Oh my God, I'm getting this amazing break and opportunity." And I ran into the booth, and I thought I was going to be able to nail it. And I thought as I was watching everybody read, "Oh, I could do that. I could do that even better." And I got in there, and I was humbled, and I realized how hard it was. And I wasn't sure I liked the sound of my voice, and I didn't think I did a very good job, but I thought, this is the beginning. I can get better at this. This is something I want to do. And I've been given an opportunity. The door has opened, and I'm going through it. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll get another chance at some point. And about 3 weeks to 3 months later, I got a call that I was cast in Robotech. So that was my first audition and my first show. And I ended up on the show as Vanessa Leeds, who was one of the bridge bunnies who was terrified all the time. "Sir, I think we're about to crash." And the captain of the ship was always calming her down. "It's all right, Vanessa. We have enough time. We'll be okay." And it worked great because I was new and nervous, and so was Vanessa.
Yeah.
We were a team. Yeah.
That's a good start, actually. That's a good start, that to start in when you are nervous, to start in a nervous role, so no one will know any better.
I was pretty lucky. It also, I learned so much in watching my performance back. all the things that I immediately had the eye of a director because I was already directing stage and I was a choreographer. So the way that I would approach production was very much from a director's eye. So I would play back what I was doing and immediately think of ways of improving the performance and things that I could do to improve my work. So I immediately was like being self-taught and improving by experience, and of course by watching all the other wonderful actors that I was working with and observing and just growing and learning and taking in all their wonderful examples like a sponge. And that's something I recommend for anybody that's getting into a field that they're interested in, is to really observe and listen and be an active listener. Don't just wait for your turn to speak, but really take in the information that you're being exposed to and utilize what you can. I mean, that stuff is golden. That made a huge difference in my development. It helped me to grow fast.
Yeah. Speaking of difficulties, since we were on the topic of like difficulties that you faced in your first edition, what is the character that you faced some difficulties like finding a voice for?
Finding a voice is never really hard for me because I gauge the response of the producers. Usually you're setting up your initial session with the director, of course, who's already seen either the whole series or the whole episode that you're working on or the whole film. So they have all of the good information that you're going to need when you ask questions about your character or what's happening with your character in any given scene. But mostly we listen to the sample voice. In most cases it's Japanese, but we do dub all languages. And so I'm borrowing heavily. That's sort of ground zero. That's the 0 point that you begin with, the neutral point. So you listen to what you're hearing and then emulate it the best you can. To me, I found that over a period of time, I felt as if I was being requested to simply replicate a performance. And I found that to be very unsatisfying. The thing I want to do is add a piece of uniqueness to every performance I do. So I'm sort of adding more to the revoicing. So it's not just vanilla English voice, but there's a spice in that voice. There's something a little different here. And maybe that was something that helped me to stand out a little bit. I'm not sure. But I think that a lot of it was timing. When I was in my 20s to my 30s, I was playing teenagers and little kids, and I still am, thank goodness.
That's actually one of the funny comments. I don't know whether it will be funny for you or not, but I was listening to the song before we started the live. I was listening to the song God Knows from Haruhi Suzumiya to prepare for because I never heard it in English. So I was curious, how did you do it? And then I was listening to it. And then I read the first comment you see in Facebook is, oh my God, this actress is 40 years old. How she's doing it?
It's so funny because women get judged and measured by their age all the time. And it's a big theme in Japan too. But the men never are. Men never are. That comment comes up, and all I can do is be proud of my age. I'm in ballet performing as a dancer at this point in my life, and this is a time in my life where most of the people I know are slowing down at my age, and I am not. So I tend to be the one with the most energy in the room at all times, and it's always been that way in my life, and that's fine. I mean, I'm a motivator. That's a blessing, I'm happy that I can share that energy, but you don't see those comments with men. And it's so ageist and sexist. It's so disappointing. And it just fires my feminist roots, which are all about equality. Yeah. Not judging and separating people, but looking at the commonality that we have. But hey, if you are putting it together that in my 40s I sounded, listen, I was playing TK from Digimon, who was only like 5 or 6 years old. And, I can play him at any age. Why not? So those are hang-ups the viewer has. They're not my hangups. And I
Yeah.
certainly don't want any of that to affect my
Mm.
ability to be
Like
employed.
I wouldn't, to be honest, but also to be a little bit fair. I don't think he meant it in this way. I mean, he was more
In a
of
negative way,
he didn't mean it in a negative way. I believe he
as
was
a
more
positive.
of impressed how oh
Yeah,
she's capable
got
of
it.
doing this, even though like of course in his perspective, oh, she's older than a teenager, of course, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But nevertheless, even though that's the realization, and then it's like, oh wow, look at what she can do, perhaps is
Mm.
what he was saying. They don't say that about men. I mean,
But
you
to be
know,
honest, also like if a man voiced a little kid, that there'll
there's
be a lot of
plenty of
comment.
them. There's
The
plenty of them. I mean, there's so many guys I could say that about. You know, Yuri Lowenthal, um, Doug Erholtz. I can't even think of everybody
mm,
right now. Even Bryce Papenbrook, who I've known since he was a little boy when he used to come to recording sessions with his father,
mm.
Bob Papenbrook, who we lost many years ago, who's just an iconic voice, an amazing man. Um, he's getting much older than 20s and 30s and still playing a teenager. You know, it's like
Mm.
we should be able to be vocal chameleons. Fine
Yeah.
comedians, why not?
Speaking of
But
chameleons, since we are on the topic of changing voices, I saw somewhere in one of your a lot of filmographies because no website have everything, so I had to do some dig ups, and one of the things that I like also in the interview to know what is real and what is not. So I saw that you actually worked in Family Guy.
I don't think I did.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not sure.
No,
I
I
wanted
can't
to.
believe I have that credit. It's not on IMDb. No,
I
I
saw it in
wish. No,
Wikipedia in 2011. It was written in
I'm not.
Wikipedia.
Honestly, I'm not really accepted by Hollywood proper.
Hmm.
I'm on the fringes of this business.
Because
Surprisingly, I have
that
over
actually
600.
that
I
actually
have
was
over
gonna be my
600.
question.
Go
Uh,
ahead.
sorry for cutting you. Yeah, that
No,
was
please.
actually was gonna be my question because Family Guy is really like for the lack of a better word, it's a really Hollywood cartoon a little bit. If say like an actor like an Adam West was doing a character there, so how Hollywood, how more Hollywood you can be, you know. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
that was my question. But since it is because that's also one of the things that I wanted to confirm because a lot of informations are out there, but there is no way of confirming whether it's true or not, unfortunately.
It's a good point. Yeah, I think you'd have to look at credits on an actual printed DVD or
Yeah,
something, or check out an official network's website or something. I know that can be
yeah.
tricky. No, that's the first time I heard that, and I'd love to take credit for it. But no, I'm really on the fringes of entertainment. I've always felt sort of like a satellite
Mm.
around Hollywood proper, and gosh, even with the Netflix release of Cowboy Bebop, which was just yesterday, I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Yeah, I went onto Twitter and saw that fellow voiceover friends were at the premiere party, but they didn't invite the voiceover cast.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the things that a little bit I really don't understand sometimes because in Hollywood or not Hollywood, I mean yeah, Hollywood. I don't have
yes,
any other alternative to say it. They are more now are more of like there is this kind of nostalgia circle. So a lot of them are more a lot of new shows have this kind of Easter eggs or this kind of cameos or this kind of. So actually, because that's one of the question I was gonna ask about, like you did a character on Power Ranger, so I was gonna go to this topic. But when we were talking about, I mean, when the Power Ranger movie came out, a lot of the old cast who were treated horribly, by the way, like that's something I need to mention for our viewers that the original cast of Power Ranger, they were treated really bad and they were not paid good because they expected that the show will flop and it will be a kids show anyway, so who care? So they didn't know that it will be this big thing. So a lot of them were treated unjustly, and a lot of them left because of that. But the funny thing is, when they did a Hollywood movie with Bryan Cranston, of course, from Breaking Bad, as Zardon, I forgot the name of the character. In 2017, they did a really big Hollywood movie for Power Rangers. Actually, a lot of the cast came as a cameos. Of course, they didn't give them any speaker roles.
Oh, really? I didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
but you
Oh,
can see them in some scenes. Like they give them at least like one scene. Some of them they give them a small scene, which was quite interesting. So it's actually a little bit like sad because it's Netflix can do better. Like if you can blame on Hollywood, you can blame on Netflix because Netflix, I'm sure, can do better than this. Yeah,
well, it's delicate for me because I do so much directing and voicing for Netflix, so I have to be
yeah,
careful. This is a new bruise because we're fresh off of the release that's just debuted yesterday, and it's just, gosh, you would invite other voice actors to be a part of the premiere, but you don't invite the voice acting cast from the series that made the series as successful and well known as it is today,
yeah.
which made it possible for a live action. So anyway, that's the business I'm in. It has broken my heart so many times over the years. You know, it drives a lot of people out of the business because of the heartache attached to many things like that, that you have to just kind of have tough skin to survive.
Yeah,
You have to, you know, deal with that conflict, overcome it, and move on, or the business will just eat you up. You know, it's so hard to explain this to people that are so inspired and think everything about the business is fun.
yeah,
It's not all fun. It is a business. That's why it's entertainment business.
that's
It's
correct.
50-50. I've been teaching a lot over the last year
Mm,
or so. I got recruited, and the whole first half of my life, I was always involved with teaching.
mm,
I started teaching as a dance instructor many years, but even when I was a teenager. And then I was teaching theater, and I was an artistic director, and I directed a lot of stage and theater. So getting back into teaching has been very natural for me, and I'm always trying to caution my students that yes, this is a fun industry, but you have to understand we have to work really fast. You have to be super highly skilled. What we do as ADR professionals, dubbing our voice to
mm.
match pre-existing performance, is like learning to play a certain instrument. And the more hours you have at it, the better you can jam and play that instrument. And the fewer hours you have, the harder it is to get the performance delivered. It's really difficult. And I've had a lot of amazing on-camera actor friends try doing ADR performing, and they've said, this is too damn hard. Thank you. I don't want to do this. So it's hard for people to believe that, but once you try it, it's not just free form acting. It's acting within a construct of what the picture dictates rather.
Mm.
So yeah, so it's a highly specialized form of artistry, and it is the least paid in all the categories of voiceover. It
Mm.
is regarded sort of like an afterthought. It's very interesting, but I believe it's our fan base, our supporters that have elevated it to such a high profile that Hollywood has to deal with us and understand that anime and revoicing and dubbing different languages of animation is a part of our culture now. This is somewhat new to the States still.
Yeah, that's
But really,
actually that's actually was my second question. Next question was, did you imagine at the beginning that this anime thing or this dubbing thing will be that big or will be that huge of a business nowadays?
we had no idea. The first 5, maybe even 8 years that I was recording professionally, I never heard anything we ever recorded, ever broadcast, ever played anywhere, ever released. So it was actually kind of a joke. We would say, when we had a scene that we thought was really good, we would say, all right, well, let's do one more pass of it for the boys on the submarines. Because we thought, well, maybe they'll send it to the military.
Yeah.
We were hearing that maybe the military was receiving some of the stuff. And then we realized we were doing some of the dubs for airlines. So they weren't allowed to have any cussing or R ratings. They had to have all general PG ratings. So we would soften the cussing and the curse words and make it more PG, more family oriented. So we'd say, okay, well, this one's for the people on the flight, but we never had anything on TV or syndicated or running on any regular basis until Robotech. And Robotech came to us, we were told, as an adult night primetime serial production, a dramatic production for adults. And the two did not equate in 1980. It was like there is entertainment for adults, it's fully animated, and it's a drama, and it's serial, and it plays 5 nights a week. And so we're like, okay, let's see this series. And at first we thought, it's okay, the quality's not that great, but the characters are really interesting. Oh wait, but the space shots are beautiful. And it started to reveal itself as a much more beautiful art form. And then we started as cast members to really respect what we were getting a hold of and able to, we hoped to bring it up to a higher quality level for the US audiences. And eventually it got released. And that's when we realized that there was any interest. Honestly, I think I had been working for about 10 years, maybe 12 years. I'm not even sure, but it had been a long time. When I was invited to my first anime convention, and when the producers called me and said, yeah, there's a company, a convention in Florida that would like to have you come and visit. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? They said, well, I'm working. Oh, no, they'll pay you to come and, oh, no, I don't think they even paid me that first time. They want you to, all expenses paid. They want you to come and be a guest at their convention. And I said, but why would they want me to be at their convention? And they said, so you can see your fans. And I said, I have fans? What are you talking about? I had no idea. So we got there. I'm at the hotel checking in, and they said, what is your reservation under? I said, Wendee Lee. And I started hearing people screaming behind me. And I turn around, and I've got 4 girls on their knees bowing, saying, we're not worthy, Wendee Lee, we're not worthy. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, it horrified me at first. And that's when I realized there were people that actually identified individual actors for what we were doing in Hollywood all those years, dubbing all of that material. So that's when I really thought, hey, I have an obligation to keep the quality high and to rise to the expectations of our fan base. And it meant a lot to me.
So what will you say was your first big out movie, or anime, sorry. What was the first big one that really made the people know you?
Well, Robotech was well known. I could say it to almost anyone and they would know what I was talking about. They didn't always know my character. One of my first bigger identifiable characters might have been, there was kind of this peak in animation. There were all these classic films that were coming out at a time when I was working with Carl Macek. Carl Macek was very instrumental in bringing anime content from Japan to the US and explaining to the producers and the networks that this is an art form that people are that's going to explode. It's going to become a permanent fixture in pop culture. And Hollywood never believed it, never understood it. But they did hire him to bring in several series and films. And so I did some crazy films with him. Vampire Hunter D. I played Charlotte, a beautiful, tragic, goth ingenue. It's just so beautiful. I love that character. I did Ninja Scroll, which was hardcore, fantasy, crazy, extreme character.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in so long. I hesitate to usually bring it up because there's a very graphic sexual scene that blew my mind when I saw it. Yeah.
It's not for everyone, let's say that.
Certainly gets into a man's fears of a woman.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And there was a whole genre of films at that time, and I can't even think of them all now. We also did some comedies. What was it? Where I played Kagero. Oh, no, she was Ninja Scroll. I can't think of all these great titles at that time, but one of them was Nadia of the Blue Water. That was a beautiful series where it was a kind of exotic character. I've always been able to play lots of kind of multi-ethnic girls.
Mm.
And she had a little companion who was a white lion, and I really identified with her love for that animal. And I'm a lifelong vegetarian and vegan as of the last like 25 years. And my love for animals is very, very keen and very deep. So I really related to my leading character having such a close connection to her animal kind of spirit guide. And there were a ton of others, but I always think to the newer characters. Oh, I also did, this was a little later. This was with animes and Kevin Seymour and Yutaka from Zero Limit. And that was, it's coming to Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very famous, quite famous
villain.
movie, yeah.
Intense. But later on, I saw the Selena story, and I realized how similar those two stories are. And they're probably, 15, 20 years apart. Unrelated stories, but very similar.
It was very quiet, ahead of its time. Very, very ahead of its time, yeah.
Exactly. In fact, I just saw a link to something like the top animated films of all time, and I had something like 8 films in that 20, I think it was 20, and out of them I think 8 of the films I've had roles in. So
because of course you always have Akira, of course, always in the list.
Thank you.
Of course Perfect Blue, and a lot of Satoshi Kon movies, like a lot of his movies are also in the movie in the list. Maybe Ghibli movies, I'm not sure with which Ghibli movies
Delivery Service.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle, a few Wings of Honey Animes, however you say that.
Like I'm sure Howl Moving Castle is in the list. It's always in some lists. Like
right.
Yeah, top 10 anime movies. It's always like that, yeah.
I think originally I had 2 bigger parts in that film, but they were redone by celebrities. And often
because it actually got released by Disney, so
right.
They had Kristen Bell. Surprisingly, they had Kristen Bell as Howl, and of course Kristen Bell. Of course, they had to have like some quotation marks like A-list celebrities.
Yes.
Because it's a Kristen Bell, you cannot just he was Batman. Like I'm not sure whether he was Batman at that time or not, but he was in his way of becoming Batman,
Many times it hasn't been so much currently, but there was a period of time in my kind of early mid-career where I would be hired to voice characters in pretty high-profile films, and I would come to find out they would use it as a guide track to teach the celebrity how to play the part, how to say the line, so they were emulating my performance, which was ironic because so much of what I was doing was emulating a foreign language performance. And here I am creating, because of the technical work involved in matching sync and making it work rhythmically, is very difficult for a celebrity to jump into when they don't have ADR skills. It's hard for anyone, but it's even harder for celebrities. I've directed a lot of celebrities in ADR projects, and it's very hard for them because it's humbling. They struggle with the actual process, so they get a little frustrated and impatient with themselves, and often they can feel kind of embarrassed because the work is so hard to do if you don't really have the tools and the experience. So really my job at that point is to just ease them into a comfort zone so they don't feel intimidated, and show them how we can arrive at this performance, and it's not impossible. But
speaking of celebrity, any celebrity you can share their names with us, or you would?
So many! Oh my gosh, I did a series called Rilakama and Kaoru, a stop motion animation. It's so beautiful on Netflix. Lana Condor was the celebrity lead in that role. She's just a doll. She was just a pleasure to work with. Somebody I would love to call my friend. She was just fantastic. I worked with a ton of people for Lionsgate. A lot of SNL talent. Rob Schneider, Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
That just broke my heart losing him. We really had a beautiful connection. He was really fun to work with. There's many others. I can't even think of them all. I started. Jennifer Beal. Let's see. What's his name? McDermott. What's his first name?
Oh yeah, it's actually it was a Saturday Night Live show. I mean, a sketch. You know it. The well, Dermot. I cannot
Is it
pronounce his
Evan?
name.
Yeah, I can't think of his first.
Yeah, yeah.
McDermott.
They
First
made
name.
they made
Yeah.
actually a sketch about this, like whether like Dermot McDermott or something Maroney, something like that. There was a sketch, Saturday Night sketch because no one can pronounce his name, so
Oh,
they
that's
made a sketch
great.
out of it. Yeah, it, it is really funny.
Yes. It's so fun. I had a list somewhere. I don't know if I can find it. But yeah, it's just so it's very different working with celebrities, but it, I, I find it pretty comfortable. I ended up doing some sketch comedy with Conan O'Brien
Oh,
and
okay.
Andy, his sidekick. We actually did a dubbing session together with a Chinese series that I was directing, and he and Andy came in and tried to do some dubbing on it and butchered the hell out of it and was hysterical.
Mm.
So yeah, I've had an opportunity to work with actually a lot of celebrities.
Actually,
Dylan
speaking,
McDermott,
yes.
John Lovett, Jennifer Beals, Kevin Nealon. I've worked with a bunch of them. It's been really fun.
Yeah, speaking of Conan O'Brien, since like it's a relevant segue. You know that there is a city in Japan called Conan, which is
Oh yeah.
inspired by the character Edogawa Conan from Kiss Closed, and then there was this running joke of for one of the season, I don't know which one of Conan O'Brien show, that he will sue Japan because they are using his name, and they actually invited him to go to Japan to visit the city, and he went there and he took picture actually with Conan Edogawa statue, because they have a statue
Oh
for
my
Conan
God,
Edogawa
that's the
there.
character I play. So it's a
That's
connection
my
again.
segue. That's my segue.
Gosh, I wish I could tell him that. I
Yeah,
could give him a hard time and say, I voiced that
yeah,
character.
yeah.
So careful.
Because he did this whole like a sketch about how did they use my name, and then like the next scene where like they show him next to the statue of Conan, or Conan Edogawa the character, and it was
I
a bit
have to see that.
hilarious. Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you for telling me that. If you happen to find a link or something about that, I'd love to see it.
Because that's actually was my segue, that Conan Edogawa is really high, what they call it, like it's really important character, I mean really famous character in anime, even
Yes.
for Arabic actors, like one of the most famous Arabic actress. She is the voice actor for Conan since the 90s. She is the Arabic voice actor for Conan since the 90s,
Ah, I'd love to hear it.
and she is really high profile actress nowadays, like I mean in VA of course, and also in drama. She is a Syrian actress. She works really she's quite famous in Syrian drama as well, and that's one of the characters that is still stuck with the people since the 90s, because that's I would say the biggest show, and maybe the first or second biggest show in anime show in the Middle East for Arabic speaking
It
people.
is.
It's Conan,
Ah,
Case Closed, yeah. It is one of the biggest
interesting.
shows, yeah. That's
Yeah, case
actually
closed.
when we were making the poster, I was looking for what are character that Arabic audience will recognize immediately. And then the first two characters that I seen, one character I seen in your CV was Nadia from Nadia's Secret Blue Water,
The
which
Blue
is,
Water.
yeah, she is really, that's a really famous old anime in Arabic countries. It's really famous, yeah.
And
And
is it famous in Arabic?
it's famous in Arabic. They call it Al Mas Zarqa, which is mean the blue diamond. They call it the blue
Yes.
diamond in Arabic. And it was really famous. It's actually one of the first, not first, but like one of the first maybe top 20 Arabic dubbed anime. So it is very very early, very early, and it's very quite famous. Like a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people are familiar with the character Nadia. That's why I put it
Oh,
in the poster. Tiki from the Digimon, of course, because also we had an Arabic version of Digimon, and it was really quite famous show, in dubbed show, and of course Conan. That was like the first three characters that will be recognized for people who didn't even know there is something called anime.
Gosh, that is so cool to hear. Those are so close to my heart.
Yeah, it's actually that's actually one of the things that I was thinking when you were making the poster, because uh, that's for us from our culture perspective,
You shut my door.
the dubbed anime, or the anime that we watched when we were kids, even if you don't watch anime or don't even know what is anime or what is Japanese animation or so on, you will be able to recognize immediately characters like Conan or Nadia. That's easily recognizable. Like maybe TK, maybe if you are not into Digimon, maybe you will not get it, but definitely Conan and Nadia are like a really high profile characters for most of the Arabic speaking who grew up watching anime since they were kids, and even till now, like, because of course Conan, the movie you dubbed,
Robert.
recently, it's the latest Conan movie, and actually even in Egypt they show the movies in cinema, because Conan movies is a cinema movies, like it's not just an anime movie you watch at home. You go to the cinema to watch the movie. That's why it is. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a really
Yes,
iconic character.
that's so exciting. We get some theatrical releases for the Conan films, but they're usually limited to just one or two weekends,
Mm.
and then they go either to the streaming platforms
Yeah,
or for sale.
it's actually now the time it came out. This movie, not this one movie. I mean, like the movie before, when I think this movie is not, maybe not dubbed it into Arabic, but when it came out, the movie before that, number 20. I don't remember the numbers. movie
Yeah,
Conan
so
movies
many.
are so many. Yeah. So the movie before, actually, it came out during the time of Corona, or it was dubbed during the time of Corona, and then it
Right.
went to streaming service immediately, and there
Ah,
was
yes.
a lot of like posters, or like everywhere in the social media you see people talking about the movie, because, as I say, Conan is a really huge deal for us. It's a
Ah,
really huge deal, yeah.
that's so great. I mean, I jumped into it starting, I think, with films.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've done anything but the films so far.
Because I believe that the original dub, when it was case closed, there were some, I would say, a lot of controversy with the name things, because they butchered all the names, like they changed all the names to purely English speaking names, like Ran, for example, she become Rachel, which is one of the funniest things. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, because like
they
it's
changed Ron to Rachel.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I haven't done that.
it's Ron. It's Ron. It's an easy name. Why do you need to make it Rachel? Like,
Right.
and Mori, actually, that's one of the things. A small tangent on Conan, because I'm really fascinated with this anime. Conan actually was inspired by, of course, by Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. So a lot of the characters in the show are actually referenced to real life, real life authors. No, like, mystery authors. So, for example,
Yes.
Professor Agasa is actually an obvious reference to Agatha Christie, and
I
Mori,
haven't done
Detective
that.
Mori, is a reference to Maury Leplan,
Oh,
the author of Arsène Lupin. So yeah, it's
even thought of that. Wow.
yeah,
Those
uh,
are the names we use.
yeah. So that's a funny thing, when you, like, the characters obviously are inspired from like international authors that are well known, and you decide
Classic.
when you dub it to use English
Ah,
names. That, like, Agatha was already English name. Mori is already, it's a French name, but it's pronounceable. Like, it's not that hard to pronounce. That's
oh,
why there
yeah.
was this kind of a little controversy. Maybe that's why it didn't. I don't know. Maybe that's why it didn't catch up in the West as much as in Arabic countries, because it really become this kind of sensation. Like, Conan was. I remember when I was growing up, Conan was everywhere. Was everywhere. They even have a show called Conan Go Live. So basically, Conan on air. Yeah. So the actress, they will have like they will have sort of an animation running in a loop, and the actress will be, of course, from behind the scene talking, and it will become sort of a podcast. So, like, listeners will join, and they want to talk to Conan, and they will talk to her, and it was a live show on one of the
Oh,
Arabic channels. It yeah,
wow,
it
that's a
was
great
really
idea.
famous show. It was really famous show back then. That show you how this character is really well received in home for us.
Very interesting. I wonder, I don't think it's as popular in the West.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know for sure, but it's certainly that big in Japan. So
It's very big in
there's a
Japan. Very
similarity
big.
in the cultural reception to it. Yeah.
That's actually one of the. I was watching some of the anime YouTubers, and they were talking about like top 10 anime that are only famous in Japan or something like that. And they were saying, then they said, "Kiss Close, Conan," and then I was like, "No, it's very famous if you speak in Arabic. It's very famous. Like yeah, that's
That is so
actually
cool.
speaking since we touch on Rachel issue. Are you with or against localization?
Oh, I am 100% for localization. I think if it's done well, it is really helpful for an audience to feel a little closer to the material
Mm,
and more familiar. It's less, I think it makes material less exotic,
mm,
which can be helpful to gain popularity in the mainstream.
yeah.
Of course, as an artist, I'm always interested in the fringes. So I'm interested in, something that's a little offbeat or
Mm,
unusual or different. But we understand that we need the mainstream support of our audiences to really have the success to be able to do the sequels and
mm,
the subsequent seasons and to be able to continue with any title. It's got to have support and popularity in the beginning to be able to continue with it. So we encourage localization as far as making it more widespread and easily consumable for the viewer.
mm. But
I
also,
think
that is that's actually one of my because I'm a little bit. Oh, I'm not sure to be honest, because obviously I grew up first with Arabic dub, which is a lot of shows were localized heavily. So, for example, like Digimon, all the cast had Arabic names, all of them. Like
oh wow.
so, actually, the name of TK, for example, TK, what was his name? I think was Wasim, which is mean handsome in Arabic. So
Oh,
actually, when I read TK, I was like, who is this? I had to Google TK from Digimon to be able to recognize the character because I grew up
oh,
with Arabic name. Uh,
I see.
one of the most famous anime shows in an Arabic country is Captain Tsubasa, if you know him. It's a very famous sport show. I mean, sport anime show
Oh, okay.
from back in the 80s, into the 80s until to the 2000s. It was really long running. They actually have some remakes done or so on. It's Captain Tsubasa. It was something about like the Japanese National League or something like that. And we had a very famous. They dubbed him with a famous Arabic football player name to make him like more familiar to the people. Until today, a lot of people know his name. The Arabic name is Captain Majid, but no one knows who's Captain Tsubasa, which is
Ah,
quite funny because when you say Captain Tsubasa, people don't recognize the name, but they immediately recognize Captain Majid, of course. And but then when I see some shows like in like in the early in the end of the 90s, there were these anime shows that I didn't even know they were anime because for me that's one of the things also you might be interested in knowing some of the shows that it was dubbed into Arabic, it was dubbed from English dub. So for example, Pokemon, it was dubbed into Arabic from the English version of Pokemon. That's why we have
that's not
all
unusual.
yeah. So that's why we have all this character name. It's the same as in the English dub, not the Japanese dub. But at the same time, Pokemon was the first show that doesn't feel very Japanese to me.
It doesn't feel what?
Very Japanese to me, like it
I
yeah.
see. It feels more localized for you?
I felt it's more actually to be honest. I thought it was a just American cartoon at the beginning when I was a kid
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. So it
because
must be localized, right?
it
Or
was
not?
localized heavily localized. There's
I
even
see.
the most famous joke when they saw the rice donuts, and they localized the rice donut to I mean rice balls. They localized
Yeah.
rice balls or
Rice
rice
balls, yeah.
cakes to donuts.
To donuts.
Jelly donuts. It's a really famous joke from Pokemon show. They literally translated rice cake to jelly donut, and then the people were like, "Are you blind? It's a rice bowl. We literally
That's a
can
little
see
extreme.
it." You know?
Well,
Yeah.
there is an art in a good localization.
Yes.
That into itself is an art form where you don't go too far and you don't go so light that it doesn't matter and it doesn't get noticed. But obviously switching a rice ball to a jelly donut is a heavily
Yeah.
localized choice, and maybe something a little more in between is safer.
Like some shows, I believe, are like better, like not better localized, but like they fit right home. Something like Cowboy Bebop, for example. You can localize the hell out of Cowboy Bebop because it's more built on Western kind of civilization, not more of like not Japanese cultural something like that.
Or
Not very
locations or any of
sensitive.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there is a show called Back On. I don't know whether you had part in it or not, but it is supposed to be mafia show that it was in the United States in the prohibition area, a period. Prohibition
Yes,
period.
yes.
So it actually has nothing to do with Japan, has nothing to do with. And one of the things that I like about the English dub, I'm sorry, I'm speaking a lot. I'm
Don't
sorry,
mind.
because I'm quite excited about this topic. There was a Netflix show that came recently, Great Pretender. I think maybe you heard of it or not. Great Pretender. It's an anime show that it was dubbed by Netflix, and then it was like Netflix publicized the hell out of it, and it was very famous because they used actually the intro or the opening song was with the Great Pretender by Fred Mercury, from Queen. So it was a whole thing. It was really good show. But one of the things.
What was the song?
Great Pretender.
Great Pretender.
Yeah.
From Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So like one of the things that a lot of maybe Western audiences quote about the show, because the cast of the show is international characters. So some is French, some is Russian, some are like British, some is Japanese, something like that. But when I watched it one episode in Japanese and then the rest was in English dub because one of the things that I was really like agonizing for me is not agonizing, like some people don't like stereotypes, but for me as a foreigner, like how can I know that a character is French if he doesn't have a French accent, for example?
Yeah.
Or like, because when I watch it in Japanese, everyone is speaking Japanese.
Right.
But
well, I'm actually watching a show right now that's confusing for me like that, a live action show, The Great. It's about Catherine the Great of Russia.
Yeah.
And it's a Netflix show with, what's her name in the lead? It'll come to me in a moment. Fanning.
Yeah, I know her, yeah.
And everybody has British accents, but she was German. And the husband has a different It's so confusing. And what they often do for our period dramas in the U.S. is make everybody British.
Yeah, that's actually
Russian, German, French, everybody's British, so you get very confused.
That's actually, I don't remember which show because I watch a lot of sketch show. So one of the show was making fun of like there was a sketch about like the French Revolution. And yeah, it was about Les Miserables, Les Miserables, the movie.
Yes.
And then they were like, why does everyone have a British accent? They are literally in the middle of the French Revolution.
Crazy.
Because
I know, we were watching some Russian story and everybody had a British accent. I know.
Especially, when they have the harsh British accent. Like, for example, the kid, because he was like a spoiled kid, he had like a Cockney accent. So it was very, very, British for me, but in the back there was the Eiffel Tower.
So those localizations can be confusing.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But somebody is making a directive. Someone from the network, from the production company, from the dubbing company, which is least likely. It's usually from the network or from the distributor. They're making those decisions about what languages they want us to borrow from. what accents they want us to use. And in the US, that's why everything tends to have a very neutral American accent, is that they don't want it to be printed with any regional dialect, so that it can be as widespread and easily consumed anywhere in the West. Any Western speaking country can sort of hear it in a neutral accent. So I'm constantly running up against new actors that want me to review their demos of their samples of their voices, and they're filled with all these different accents. And it's like, your accents and your impersonations are great, but they'll never work.
That's
always
actually one of the
neutral
things.
American.
One of the things also you might be interested to know that in Arabic, of course, Arabic countries are quite a lot, and there is a lot of population who speak Arabic, but not every country speak the same dialect or the same accent. So when they dub Arabic, there is something called the standard Arabic, which is more of like the TV kind of language. The language you speak, for example, in a formal, when you have like a formal declaration or a formal statement by the president of blah 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 or the prime minister of blah blah blah, he make the statement in this kind of formal accent or formal language, and this is the language they use to dub the Arabic shows. I mean, when they dub to Arabic. That's why, that's actually was really convenient, because a lot of us grew up with learning the standard because it's a formal language, but we learn it actually from the dub show, because of course in the school they do teach it. That's good. So
I bet that happens in many countries, that there's a more formal accent or speech pattern or style that's used as. Certainly in Jamaica, I experienced that. I used to be involved with the reggae music scene in Jamaica for a while, and all of the radio voices use the Queen's English. So you hear the Jamaican patois in the streets, but on the radio and in television, there was a more formal, almost British, full-on Queen's English accent. So there's probably a lot of that regionally in many countries.
That's actually a really interesting thing, because actually there was a question about whether you prefer the anime to be dubbed with local accents or more of a standardized accent, basically. For example, like, because that's one of the things that I actually like personally to see, as I said, in this anime, like The Great Pretender or Back On, I want to hear, I know some people can find it offensive, but I want to hear an Italian accent from the Italian guy, not a Polish British accent. Or for example, if I know it for some people, it's quite funny for me when they have an American character and they decide to give him an American accent, and it is 80% of the time it's a Texas accent.
Right.
And for me, it doesn't make any sense, because it is dubbed by American. Why you are the one who made this decision?
Isn't that wild? Well, we often find that the Osaka accent in Japan is one of the few regional dialects that we ever actually come into encounter, where we need to give it some sort of a stamp vocals imprint that has some kind of an accent. So it was decided many years ago, that the Osaka accent is a more familiar speech pattern, more friendly, more outgoing. So it usually translates as Southern.
That's actually one of the things. I'm not sure whether it's quite known or not, but they call Osaka the Kansas of Japan, the Kansas City of Japan. So it's actually I can see now. So
that's the counterpart, more or less. But you know that all of our comments about the better localization versus the ones that leave your head scratching, why did they make that choice? Really comes down to the executives that are involved in the process and the decision making that they are making. We have to surrender to their choices. So whenever they do allow us to give a few accents to, say, the German professor or the French connoisseur or whatever the character may be, we're delighted, because we have so many talented actors that do great dialects and fantastic accents. We hardly ever get to use them. Sorry, my final word. Let me just add that usually what happens is they want it very watered down. So they don't want a complete French accent. They really just want a touch of words here and there, just a little bit peppered in. That's all we're usually allowed to do.
one of the great shows actually. One of the few shows I watched the English dub to recently was because in here in Germany we don't have in Netflix they don't offer a lot of shows in English dub. They offer it in German dub, which is I'm not gonna watch a show in German dub, even though they have a great dub. But my German is not that good to watch a show in German.
Well, let me ask you.
Yeah.
So, what has happened for us in the States is that when Netflix became the big production arm umbrella of the business that it is now, especially for dubbed content, they made the decision that everything that is distributed on their channel would begin in the default language of English. So all the Spanish series, the Korean series, everything had to be dubbed before they would release it. So they set up the authoring that when you click on it, the default language is English. When you want to change it, you have to go into the menu and change it. So I don't know if they allow you to do that. Can you go in?
That's actually for me. I use my default of Netflix is English. I made it English.
You switch it.
I switched it, but the first time I had it was actually German. So actually, when I start the show, it started in German, and then I went no stop, switch to English. And one of the messed up things, because I wanna that's also a controversy we are not gonna get into, but I wanna watch anime legally most of the time, So I wanna watch it through. I have a Netflix account. I wanna watch it. Most of the shows that are offered in Netflix, they don't have English dub in Germany. So they have either the German dub or the Japanese. And they don't have even subtitle for some of them. They have German subtitle. So sometimes I have to watch with the German subtitle because there is no English subtitle. So it's a little bit inconvenience. But one of the few shows I found that was fully English with everything was JoJo Bizarre Adventure. So I actually watched it, JoJo Bizarre Adventure Part 2 and Part 3 fully in English on
Was Lisa in any of that?
Yeah, and that actually made difference because in JoJo Part 2 especially, since we have Lisa here because there is a lot of JoJo fans in our group. So they actually one of the admins of our Facebook group, she had her profile picture was Lisa for almost 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to her from Lisa.
Shout out to Nadia if she is watching. So really Part 2 JoJo, the thing about the accent really makes different because part of the show was in United States, in Rome, and I don't remember the other countries, but it was jumping around. There was a French characters, there were Italian characters, of course, obviously German characters, and we are not gonna get into it.
Well, usually when we do a dub primarily from Japanese, but it could be any language as the original language, they dub it into English first, and that becomes the standard language the other countries dub from. So we call it FIGs. From English, it could be dubbed into French, Italian, or German. FIG. So and Spanish and FIGs if it's plural. So those are our basic languages that usually those languages want the English dub to work from. Probably because more of those European languages are familiar with English. For one, I'm totally guessing. I don't really know the reasons why, but I do know that we often can't continue with a series being dubbed in other languages until our English dub is perfected. And they use that as a template instead of the Japanese.
Yeah, that's why some people a lot of people who have Netflix use a VPN so they can actually they set their location in the United States so they can actually watch the dub. Because in my case, for example, sometimes I can not only watch it in Japanese or German. Because for me, when I'm working or doing some activity, I like to watch an anime series when I'm doing this. And of course, I don't speak Japanese.
No, all my years of being exposed to it, and I've learned so little. It's a shame. But you are thinking back and forth with Arabic and German, and that will keep your brain young.
Yeah, I'm definitely because sometimes because I speak. Most of my friends are international friends here in Germany, so I speak with them English. When I have go to the supermarket, I have to speak, of course, German. And when I'm speaking with my family or my Arabic friends, I speak Arabic. So I jump between languages just like this. Like in
amazing.
one day I can speak three languages, and just to live
Wow.
by, to get to live by, which is quite funny.
And you're using English to speak with your international friends
Yeah,
mostly.
yeah, most of the time because I
Wow.
was studying in an international university in Germany, and my program was taught in English. So of course, even contacted
Wow.
with professors, even in my current company, because we are. That's a side tangent.
Well,
my
let me ask you
Yeah.
this then. What language do you usually dream in? What are your dreams in?
That's actually. I think I dream in Arabic. I think because that's
Probably always
yeah.
back to your original, your mother
I
language
think so.
for
I
dreams.
think so because for me, I don't think that I ever dreamed like in English or I sometimes I would have because since I have a lot of international friends, I have in my dreams international people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly.
I never built the connection in my head to be honest. So I maybe I did. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know.
Curious. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real curious thing because definitely I have seen a lot of Asian people in my dreams. So, like because I have we currently I go a lot with there is something called Japanese Tamtish, which is
Hmm.
like the Japanese club basically. So I
Oh,
attend a lot with
nice.
them. So definitely I dreamed of some events that I attended there. So does the Japanese people in my dreams speak Arabic? That will be
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah,
that will
yeah.
be a really interesting thing to know, or I mean to notice, but I cannot tell unfortunately. Speaking of voices, did anyone recognize you before out of your work because of your voice, like you were shopping or something
Ah,
like that?
I very seldom get that question. No, it's amazing. I can be completely incognito, keep my privacy, which is so precious and important to me. I think that I've often connected that I may have very well set out to be an on camera film actor, which is really what I was doing in the
Hmm.
beginning of my career, and a lot of theater and creating original characters from new plays and new content was really my goal. That's the thing that I did the most of. And I really thought that would be the projection of my career. I thought that I would be an on camera actor pretty much exclusively,
Hmm.
and I ended up very much in post production and behind the scenes. And I think it is a huge blessing because when I started out in the entertainment industry, the paparazzi existed, but it was really in Europe.
Hmm.
And actors could still have some privacy in California, in New York, in various cities. But over the years, we know social media, everything involved with going computerized and all, it's really evaporated a lot of personal privacy.
Hmm.
And I think I would have been a very unhappy, sequestered person if I had, telephoto lenses over my
Yeah.
wall watching me do guard. I just would have really had trouble with that. I
Hmm.
probably would have ended up in court because I probably would have shoved a camera in somebody's face. Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
it's for
I'm
me it's a little bit
so,
from my perspective it's a little bit different because one of the things that we I mean I felt with dealing with a lot of voice actors that voice acting normally doesn't get enough appreciation, so some of the
true.
actors want to feel this kind of recognition, to feel oh
Sure.
people know me because I did a lot of shows. I did over 100 shows, so people must know me at some point. But this is actually the first instance that I see someone, a voice actor, who is happy to not get recognized.
I know, and I think it takes a certain amount of life experience and
Mm,
wisdom to get there.
mm,
Yeah, I've been through that whole objective for fame and recognition and notoriety, but at some point in post production where you're not in the camera all the time and under
mm.
the lights, you have to reckon with your ego
Yeah.
and rein in your dreams of grandeur into a realistic goal. And all of those steps for me were soul enhancing. It
Mm,
made my character stronger to humble my ego and
mm,
to really appreciate the goodness that was coming to me as a performer. I mean, I have a lot of actor friends that, you know, are dying for opportunities to perform and waiting for all those auditions, because it's a numbers game. You put out 50 auditions, you might get 2 parts.
Yeah.
Who knows? And it's very difficult submitting as an on-camera actor now. You have to stage your scene, light it, costume it, do your hair and makeup, and memorize all of your damn lines just to audition. And I can't tell you how hard it is to commit material to memory. It is not an easy thing to do. And then to light yourself and produce this film and then edit it and then submit it. And then, as actors are always told, we're supposed to forget it, submit it and let it go.
Yeah.
Don't hold on to those things. And when you hold on to things tight, they tend to escape you. When you give it breath and freedom and let it go, they tend to come back to you.
Because that's one of the things. That's one of the things as well. Like, you don't want to live on the hope that you will get the role. At the same time, you don't want to be really broken when, like, you don't get it, you know?
Yes, right. There's a lot of psychology that goes into being a healthy actor, because you face so much rejection and isolation, and now we're working so isolatedly at home in most cases, that a lot of people have been really struggling with mental health. But a lot of people across the world have, under a year or two of pandemic. So much so, I was invited to actually speak at a mental wellness workshop where I really, and that ties into all of my past work with nutrition and health and wellness. So it was, and my teaching background combined, it was a very natural kind of sidestep for me to get into that. And I'd like to do more of it, because I think sharing our darkest moments in an intimate way is a very healing thing. If you can get that honest with yourself and get that quiet with your source, like what is at the source of your issues, and to process that with other people that are going through it becomes very therapeutic. And so I really believe in self-help and improvement and growing your entire life and through your whole trajectory of your career and everything else. So to get back to the original statement, I have found a real liberty, a real freedom in being in post-production and not having my face plastered everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, I can say this from this point in my life, after being in this industry for 4 decades, you know, watching yourself age on tape is a very difficult thing to do. It's very humbling and painful. And I see so many people struggling with trying to hold on to their youth and denying that they're aging. And I say age gracefully, you know, embrace your long life. The objective is to live a long life, which will include aging. So why not just do it gracefully? I choose not to do it with a bunch of injections and surgery. You know, I'm going to do it with healthy living and exercise and being in nature and having a good, you know, outlook on life and optimism. And I think a lot of that is grounded in gratitude, not overlooking the goodness that you're given in your life. And, you know, when I am in my darkest hours and I still face a tremendous amount of what feels like rejection, I'm not included in every party as far as every show you want to be invited to play in. When I have those darkest moments, I can really get myself centered again by embracing what I do have and all the gratitude that I truly have in my heart for these beautiful opportunities I've been given in this lifetime to play characters from over 600 lifetimes. I just hit 600 credits on IMDb, and I'm so, you know, proud of that and so grateful.
Speaking of like 600-year-old, because I have a friend who he keep texting me, you need to talk about Dragon Ball.
Oh yes.
Bulma, of course.
Yes, my Bulma, yes.
Yeah, because like there is also like it's a little bit hard to ask about character, because from the comments and like the friends who keep texting me when I'm live, they like there is some characters they sort of wanna hear and wanna know about. So for example, Bulma, of course Haruhi, some character from League of Legends. I don't play the game, so I don't know. Lana, because we have a little bit of a fandom for League, a huge Arabic fandom for League. So they were excited when they hear that you are the voice of Lana. and of course, Faye. Of course, Faye. Like,
Aw.
I keep running in circles about Cowboy Bebop without actually getting into the topic.
It's so exciting because here Bebop's been out for what? Is it 20 years?
I think,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
I think more, a little bit, yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah. And, and here's all the love and appreciation being applied to it to this very moment. This is a historic timestamp for us as far as being members of the Bebop because of the launch of the Netflix live action series, which just happened last night. I've only seen one episode and I'm just blown away. I'm so thrilled that it's being done so tastefully with such incredible artistry, creating a world that we've never seen before.
Because also, to be honest, if the dub for Cowboy Bebop haven't succeeded in the West, probably we would have never had this Netflix live action.
No, it's not probably. It's definitely never
yeah.
freaking would have ever seen the light of day without the success of this
Because
series.
a lot of people till like I would say till the mid 2000, like till 2010, didn't even deal with Netflix. Anime as industry, as a legit industry or like an actual entertainment industry. Till like the 2012 or 2015, even people will say, "Oh, this is actually making money. There is a business to get out of here. There is a lot of this nostalgia wave, this kind of nostalgia feeling about all the old shows." And suddenly you see a lot of this kind of Hollywood live actions coming out of animes, and a lot of this kind of anime remakes. Even in Japan, they start remaking a lot of old shows. And some shows that is still not dying till today, still going on, like Conan, for example. It's been going since '96. Because, yeah, it has this kind of strength to it. It becomes this kind of millions of dollars or billions of dollars industry suddenly. Like, I heard, I think, Sony bought Crunchyroll, which was the biggest anime platform, streaming platform. And people suddenly realized Funimation, yes, yeah, and they suddenly realized, oh, we can make a lot of money actually working with this, like quotation marks, kids shows. That everyone thought, oh, it's just a kid show, it's just a cartoon, or like that's what they used to say, and suddenly it become this huge industry and this huge kind of thing. That's actually quite fascinating because during we had over more than 30 guests by now, voice actors, and one of the things that I always keep feeling that all of these people did these rules with love without even know they will get famous or this actually shows will succeed. They just did it professionally and they give it all they have and they didn't expect anything back. So it's actually more kind of respectable that he did this actually without knowing that it's gonna be this huge big thing.
Well, yeah, because when you're an actor, you just want to work.
Yeah.
It's interesting. People will say, how often do you pass on parts, or how often do you ask to play a role? And it's like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There's an audition process. You submit for it, and if you're lucky, you get cast. Once in a while, like with Cowboy Bebop, I'm given a role, and I was just given the part of Faye. I think all of the four leads were decided upon internally, and they just made a decision. They knew our work, and they cast us in those roles. But to get back to the original point, we have to remember Cowboy Bebop was not a success in Japan.
Yes.
It was not received that well. It was incredibly Western. It was based on rock and roll albums, and album references and artwork and jazz and all these elements and cowboys that were very Western. And it was this love song to the Watanabe and all of the creators' influences, Western influences, in an amalgamized format. So those references weren't always readily available to a Japanese audience, but in America, we ate it up. Because it was like it was written for us. And that's why us as a cast felt so inspired when we saw really the way that we started with that show is we looked at the opening credits. Just watching Tank and all the cool graphics and the way the cast was depicted and the silhouettes and the movement and the cigarettes and the lighting. It said it all. It told us exactly what the tone and the tempo of the
And of
show was
course
going to be.
the iconic OST, of course, like oh, it's so like it's
Tank.
yeah, you can literally hear it without even knowing what is the show is, and you immediately, oh, this is Cowboy Bebop, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So I think that, I can proudly proclaim that the live action series is directly in relation to the success of what we were able to do with the show, the animated series in English.
yeah, that's
And that,
actually yeah.
that's
I
that
agree.
feels great.
Yeah, I agree with this because for us also in the Arabic region, we didn't actually like Cowboy Bebop is of course known because it's a famous series, but not everyone get it because it's not what we expected from anime because it's heavily, as you said, in this kind of Western theme, and this is not what we are used to it with anime. But at the same
Uh,
time, because of the success in the West, which is due to the dub, of course, it become this big thing and this kind of like uh, pop culture phenomena to say,
uh,
which led to this today that it has a Netflix show, and of course show like also Ghost in the Shell that also like it was really iconic movie or iconic franchise, and of course because of the dub and how it was presented in the West, it suddenly become this kind of inspiration for a lot of sci-fi movies and a lot of even how big blockbusters, Hollywood blockbuster. Even recently in 2016, they had the literally Ghost in the Shell live action, which was yeah. We are not gonna
yes.
talk about this.
Yes. Production IG,
Yeah,
they're branching out and they're really right now choosing classic anime
yeah,
for
yeah,
development in Hollywood is a trend right now.
yeah.
And some of them they've got to start somewhere. So some of them are not going to be tops.
Mm,
You've got to make a stab at it somewhere,
mm.
and hopefully they continue to improve. And from what I've seen, Bebop is nailing it.
Yeah.
It seems like. Have you seen the first episode yet?
No, I didn't yet. I didn't yet.
I'd love to get your opinion. I've been, counting down the days, waiting to see it. And, my husband said he thinks it's that the art, basically the art design and the set dressing and the tone, it's got kind of a sepia yellowish
Mm,
look to the film stock. And the whole thing, the whole way that they've honored the series is completely unique and unlike anything I've ever seen on TV. So in cinema or elsewhere. So
mm.
I'm super happy that they're honoring us so well and just you taking it to the next level. It's fantastic.
That's actually one of the. It just came to my mind now. That's actually coincidence that we when we scheduled the interview, we didn't know. I didn't know
It's
personally
ironic,
that it will come
right?
out. It will come out that soon. So yeah,
Right.
it's a very nice coincidence that like two birds with one stone. To get your
Yes,
fresh reaction
exactly.
of the live action directly.
Exactly.
Yeah, just one thing came to my mind since we were speaking about. I mentioned the Batman before because I'm a huge DC fan. You did the motion comics for Superman Red Sun, right?
That's right.
You
Not
did
many
Wonder
people
Woman,
know
yeah.
that.
I watched it. It's available on YouTube. I watched it on YouTube. It's really something. It's really good. Good. It
Oh,
was a really
thank
good one.
you. I didn't know it was on YouTube. That's great
Yeah,
news.
they of course as they done now. There's an animation coming. I don't know whether it came out already or not yet. There is a whole DC animation. Red Sun. They make it into an actual DC movie, animation
Oh,
movie. Yeah, but for me, I watched it. The motion caption. It was really good. It was really. It got at the beginning. I was like, motion comics. Really, I'm gonna watch a motion comics.
ah,
But the voice acting, the music, and like it really made me get the series. I really liked it. I
oh, I'm
really liked it.
excited
Yeah,
to see it. I've always wondered what happened to that.
yeah. It is. It is even. It has a great narration. Like I don't know who is the narrator, but it really was something. It really was something. I liked it so
Oh, I'm
much.
so happy to hear that. Don't mind me, my kitty's walking by,
Ah,
so I'm
that's
petting
fine.
her.
No problem.
um, That's so exciting. So it's just under Red Sun? YouTube?
Superman Red Sun, I think so.
Okay. I'm gonna look that up. That's great.
Yeah, like it was really, it was a different experience for me because I was a lot of time I wanted to read comics and I went into a lot of comics. Unfortunately, a lot of them are only in English, so I couldn't find any Arabic versions to read. So I had to dug deep into English
Yeah.
into them. And one of the time I was just because Superman Red Sun is one of these iconic visual novels. I believe it's a
Yes.
visual novel, not just a comic. And I really wanted to feel it, not just read it. So when I
Oh,
found out there is a motion caption, I was like, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have it. And then, yeah, it was really something. I
oh,
really
that's great.
felt it, yeah.
That was a self-funded, like labor of love. The creators really worked hard to bring that production to life and just scrape together the funding and just did it with a lot of love and a lot of volunteer work.
Yeah,
And I mean, they just worked so hard to scrape together a budget so they could pay us, the actors. And they gave us wonderful swag. We got these beautiful t-shirts with big red stars on them. And you know, honestly, it was a hard reimagining of the story for me with, you know, it being told as a Russian success story. That was
yeah.
really hard.
It was, and the fact that they, I don't think it's a spoiler to the series. They made Batman a terrorist, literally. Batman literally was a tourist in the film. So like it's really different kind of comics. It's really different. Like because for me I'm a little bit, to be honest, I'm a little bit off, like put off of Superman because for me Superman is very, very Americanized.
I
So for
see.
me, from a person who's from a different culture, and of course we have a different kind of view of, American propaganda and so on in the Middle East.
True.
So for me, I was a little bit always like I felt that Superman is a poster boy with the American propaganda. So I was not really into Superman. Meanwhile, I was into Batman because I felt he's the vigilante. He's the one who is, sort of. He's not an anti-hero, but he is not in, for example, the poster boy of the regime or the government or
No,
something
he's
like
not
that.
the clean cut, squeaky clean type,
Yeah.
right?
So when I saw Red Sun, I was like, Superman can actually be interesting.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, I'm willing to go on this exploration, but it hurts thinking that Russia ends up with the dominance.
yeah. Because for us, Middle
What?
Eastern, when
Um,
we.
I just
Hurry.
I just got a call back from another plumber, Bob Griff. He's got 5 stars. He said that
Hang on one second.
Sorry, no problem.
he said that he's busy till 4, but if we still have a problem,
Can you still hear me? Okay. Go
Yes,
ahead.
I
he
can
said
hear
he'd be
you.
happy to come over
He can
to-
still hear me. Hang on. Just a minute. I gotta mute out.
No problem. You can just mute your
Oh,
microphone.
sorry. We have a little home emergency.
No, it's fine. You can mute your microphone to deal with it. No, I cannot hear you. That's fine. I can see your lips moving, but take your time. هناخد بريك شوية يا شباب، أو يعني بريك. أنا هبقى بس اللي موجود، فاحنا شوية في بريك لحد أما هي ترجع وكده. في هذا المقابل هقرأ الكومنتات. طبعا أنا عارف مين اللي بيكتب كومنتات باسم البيج. أنا هقرأ الكومنتات. هقرأ الكومنتات.
Okay, I'm
Yeah, I
back.
can hear you because I actually went through the comments. So I seen some of the comments. Some like first comment, was you, like a lot of comments in Arabic. They wrote in Arabic.
Yes.
Yeah, and the first comic in English was like, "Bro, she voiced Conan," and that's actually cool. And I like the English Conan voice.
Aw, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, someone was asking about whether like you have a character that you regret acting somehow. Maybe you didn't like the story,
regret
or you didn't like the setting of the story. Maybe.
Well, I have to say that there are some very stereotypical types for, especially for female characters in the Japanese storytelling style. And often I find that they are very, hang on one second. I got to shut my door.
No problem. Take your time.
Honey, shut the door. Goodness.
No problem.
We're dealing with a plumbing emergency, so we're trying to get a plumber over here.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
So, what was I just telling you?
Yeah, the character that you regret, or...
Oh, yeah. You know, the thing that I found, certainly in my earlier career when I was playing lots of innocent, young female characters, they often stereotype Japanese ingenues as frail and afraid and submissive and unaware of how overwhelming their chest size is and just very cheesecakey and dumbed down. And I really, as a feminist, as a woman that really wants to elevate my art form and blaze a trail for other actresses to follow and to have more opportunities, I found it very demeaning at times. And I just really, it goes against my Western spirit and the rebellious nature that I inherently have, to sort of question authority and to challenge tropes. And it bothered me that so often my characters felt very objectified, and that it's just the exaggerated chest size of so many of the characters that I played. And you know, that's
actually one of the things that off-putting a little bit for us as well, because you know, in Arab country we are more conservative, more a little bit
honest,
and for us it's off-putting because it's done in this kind of, there is a sexual undertone to an innocent scene, which is made me a little bit feel uncomfortable, because this is obviously shoehorned into the story. This is not a part of the story. You literally came out of your way to make this scene.
You know, exactly. And it's so confusing for us. Gosh, I hadn't even thought how it would be received in Arabic-speaking countries. But for us, it's like, why are you putting all this jiggly bust imagery into a scene, into a title that's for little kids? Why are we hypersexualizing these characters? Which America does plenty of hypersexualizing already in our culture, and the pressure on women to look a certain way and to be a certain shape is driving women crazy into major disorders, eating disorders and otherwise, and depression and suicide. And it's really a whole level of pressure that only women really experience. I know that some men go through it too, because we are so visually obsessed with perfection in our country. But it's
this
so
is also
confusing.
A side comment on this about Asian men, because that's one of the funny things, because the stereotype for American actors, Asian man, is George Clooney, but obviously not every man will be George Clooney when they get 50. So it's a little bit also, you know, a little bit annoying, because everyone, you should be Silver Fox when you grew up, but I can't. This is not in my hand. I will go bald, I will go fat. That's something sometimes you cannot control, you know.
But even think of your example, a silver fox. That implies a mature, handsome man. Women aren't given that opportunity. Women are expected to be young, beautiful, and sexy their whole lives. And as soon as you are not any of those things, you're no longer viable. You are replaced. So it's a really different standard for women versus men. And so, as you can see, and I keep referring to it, I'm really for the equality of the sexes, for total integration and equity between males and females and everybody in between, including the LGBT community as well. Finding the balance where all citizens are treated equally is truly the objective of feminism. And really, you know, when my husband told me he was a feminist when we were dating, that I think I almost jumped across the table and threw my arms around him, because why not? Every one of us should be for the equality, the fairness for all human beings,
Yeah.
right? It's just so primary. It's funny that it's so hard for us to embrace it. There's been a decade or more of kind of negative connotation that's been associated with the word feminism
Mm.
in our country and probably elsewhere. There was a big backlash, assuming that feminists meant that we were men haters. And like, where is the equity in that? Look up the definition of the word. I defy anyone to look at the definition of feminism and tell me that you are or are not a feminist. And then you can qualify it, because that's something you need to reach into your own heart to decide and wrestle with. Really, the sacred feminine, the goddess energy, the divinity that is celebrated in ancient Egyptian culture and in ancient Greek and in mythology and throughout the world's history, was always based on a more balanced ratio between male and female energy.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a comment from Imad about when we were speaking about Superman, because since you worked on Dragon Ball, he wanted to. Do you have this kind? Because in a lot of anime communities, they have this kind of a lot of this kind of idea that Superman, or I mean Gogo in this case from Dragon Ball, is Superman of Japan. So when you were working on Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball in general, did you feel this kind of undertones a little bit?
Yeah, probably, because it does sort of feel like it's his world and we're all kind of just living in it, because he's the, when you think about it, he's the one that acts out and is the most inappropriate of anybody, but he always gets his way because he's the strong one.
Yeah, because there someone actually did this kind of comparison on Facebook or on YouTube somewhere, I don't remember where. There was this kind of comparison between like Superman, who came from Krypton, Gogo, who come from the Saiyajin. I forgot the name of Vegeta. The name of his planet was Vegeta, which is also kind of a joke, because there is a character literally called Vegeta, and the planet was called Vegeta, and his father was called King Vegeta. So it's like they were not very creative with the name sometime in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's all kind of a hyper exaggerated world. So, I fit right into that stuff.
Yeah.
I love broad comedy, big characters, lots of drama. All of that stuff is very satisfying as an actor.
Yeah. Sorry, last topic. So because we are taking, I'm taking so much time from you, and
it's been really fun.
Yeah, and I don't want to take more than this. This is a topic for all of our gamers, because we have some of gamers in our community. Since you also directed some video games, and you played
a few hundred, yes.
And you actually played a lot of characters. So, for example, like Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem. I'm not a gamer, so I'm butchering a lot of them.
No
Persona
problem.
5 became a huge success. Like I know a lot of people who were absolutely addicted to Persona 5, and of course League of Legends, of course, because I know a lot of people are also addicted to League of Legends. Especially, now there is a Netflix show also based on characters from League of Legends that came just recently, last week I think. It's called Arcant or something like that.
What is it called?
Arcant. Maybe someone in the comments can write it, because I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It's actually one of the top 10 shows in Germany currently. So it is quite famous, I believe. Yeah. So how did you go from voice acting to just straight up directing video games? I mean.
I started directing voice actors on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So I was
really?
working. Yeah, that was when I really got my start. So I really got a live action start directing originally, but then quickly I was working on a number of anime series, namely Digimon, and we had a great show called Super Pig, but it was only released to a few countries. I think it made it to Australia, but we did like 60 episodes of that show. And there was a bunch of other ones, Melancholy Nights. I can't remember all the shows we were doing back then. And I was, at the same time, I was also directing Outlaw Star for another company.
Outlaw Star.
So I had a bunch of shows. I was doing Korigane, what's another one? Wild Arms. Gosh, there was a ton of them. I don't do well when I recall, but honestly, when you've got hundreds and hundreds of titles, it's hard to remember stuff. So I quickly check my IMDb, usually as a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very natural transition because the gaming world is a little more hyper, at least RPGs tend to be a little more hyper reality. They tend to be in mythical times, usually. And it requires a more classical sense of acting in many cases. Certainly the performances that I have in World of Warcraft and Hearthstone and all of those bigger epic classical world games, I'm playing characters that are grand and using a deeper register of my voice. And I'm often emulating some of my favorite actors. And Kate Blanchett is usually the one that I get cast to do quite a bit. So I borrow from her heavily, and I'm very honored to be able to even say she's an influence of mine. So yeah, directing them it was such a natural transition for me. And also, in most cases, we're not dubbing the content to picture. You're able to just perform it naturally. Very much like how we
That's actually was one of my questions, because I believe some of these games were like somehow produced in the United States or related to this. So not all of them are dubbed. Like, I mean, sometimes you have to come up with the voice. Like, this character didn't have a voice before.
Sometimes, yeah. I've been directing the Fire Emblem games for years, and they often have new characters that we originate and create all on our own. Sometimes we'll have a Japanese voice reference, sometimes we don't. And we can work both ways. And, it's always, I think it's the most satisfying and most fun when we just get to create something from whole cloth. And really that satisfies that itch I have to originate original material. So I really like the idea of being the first person to have an idea of how to bring that character to life. And here I am in a world where I'm recreating performances all the time that have already been established. So, the dichotomy is interesting. I do like doing, I like mixing up the genres, doing ADR anime, doing RPG free recording, original animation, where there's nothing involved with how you're creating your performance except for coming up with it fresh. So it's really fun to me. Creativity arrives from many different processes. And I really enjoy the variety of ways that things come together. Very much so in songwriting is the same way. I love collaborating with people. Someone has an idea, you add to that idea. I've also written something I've written plenty on my own where it's just sitting in silence and the idea comes to you and is born through your own voice and your own ideas. I also really love taking the Japanese music and redoing the lyrics entirely and making it match the lip sync. So, there's different challenges with each step of what we do. And I have made it a point and a focus in my career to diversify and have a real variety of things that I get to play in. So it doesn't end up being static. I don't just do one thing all the time. I may do one thing for a long period of time, but then that project will end and then there'll be an entirely different project.
Yeah. Since you sang, do you memorize any song by heart that you did in anime or something like that? Maybe we can hear.
Oh, well, I'm not going to just sing for you right now, but yeah, I mean, especially like with the Haruhi songs, I had already been working as a lyricist and adapter for music in anime for some time. I did a lot of the singing voices in Digimon. I did all of the Mimi characters singing. And I just need to make a quick note of that. The girl who played Mimi for us in the U.S. was Felice Sampler. And recently, just this year, we lost her. She suddenly passed away, probably from a surprise heart attack. And so we've lost her, and we just had a memorial for her. So I just want to put a little love and shout out for her performance and that we got to collaborate, and I was her singing voice. But we have a large village of actors that we get to work with in an ongoing way. So I've known many people in my business for 10, 20, 30 years. And when you have a large group of friends and a big village that you work with, you're going to lose people over time. So
Yeah.
that has happened, and we've lost some greats, but it's good to honor them when you can. So I'm glad it came up. But yeah, I think when I write the lyrics and then I get to record them, I remember a lot of them. But even songwriters sometimes forget their own words. So
Yeah,
sometimes you can see them.
that's quite true actually. Like because of course we had some of our guests were singers, and
Yes.
it was quite common for some of them to not actually remember their songs. Like so, sometimes they will have to have written notes with them when they were singing live for us. And yeah,
Yeah.
mm,
I mean, honestly, like I was saying earlier, committing material to memory is a real exercise, and it's very difficult to keep something memorized unless you're refreshing it and using that memory again and again. So yeah, don't fault us for being human. We can't remember all of our roles and all of our words sometimes.
yeah, that's quite natural to say. So, do you have any last message to your fans or the people who've been watching us all this time?
I'm just so thrilled to finally be connected with you and with my great love for Egypt and Egyptian people and culture. This is just a super special occasion for me. I never thought I would ever be able to equate my love for Egypt and my career. And gosh, maybe someday there'll be a convention in Egypt I can join you for. That would be so exciting.
Yeah, actually, we have one of the one of the biggest conventions that's sort of they are in cooperation with our group. It's called Ijikon, which is the biggest anime convention in Egypt. So yeah, hopefully there will be a chance in the future. Hopefully,
Are you affiliated with it?
I know the guy who is affiliated with.
You may have to
Yeah.
put us in. Would you please put a good word in for me? I would love to come and visit everybody there. I don't know how many
Mm.
fans ever listen to any of the English, but there's a lot we could talk about and compare notes between the two cultures and the two approaches to dubbing.
Sure, especially a lot of people who actually attend the convention are actually gamers, so definitely we'll have connection there.
Right, that makes sense.
Because I'm
Yes,
sure they
I'm
don't play it in
thrilled.
Japanese. I'm sure they don't play the games in Japanese.
Got you, right. Especially when it's quick, yeah. Yeah, I'm just thrilled that you and I were able to work out a time and that we are able to have this worldly connection like we were talking about in the very beginning of our time together. And what an amazing thing to utilize technology in that we can have all of our friends on Facebook seeing it live. And it's really been an honor to create these characters and to have a legacy career with all the time that I've invested in it, and that people care about that is only the cherry on top. It's only makes everything a greater pleasure for me.
Yeah, I think there is a comment from someone, but I'm a little bit don't understand the comments because it's. But I believe he was one of the people who was working on the dub of Dragon Ball Super, Arabic Dragon Ball Super dub.
Oh,
Yeah, he put a comment, but I'm it's a little bit hard for me to
which
understand the
character?
comment. Sorry?
Which character did he play?
I'm not sure, but maybe he either worked as a character or he was one of the people who work behind the scene. Maybe.
Well, here's a
Yeah.
shout out to you. Yay.
Yeah, Naji Abu Muhammad. Yeah. I just
So
wanted
cool.
to pronounce the name because I sometimes I cannot read Arabic names that are written in English.
Got you.
Yeah. So, can you take us out by there is a very famous phrase from Faye to take us out from here.
Well, let me see if I can remember it. What's the first lesson in combat? Shoot them before they shoot you.
And there is another
See you
one.
soon.
Yeah, see you soon, Space Cowboy or something like that. Yeah.
See ya, Space Cowboy.
Thank you for having us. I mean, being our guest today, and It was an honor to have you, and also was a great,
Thank you.
a really nice interview. And
Thank you.
hopefully we will meet again, even in a
Yes.
podcast or away from the podcast. Hopefully.
Please feel free to stay in touch. And may I also give a shout out for my socials?
Yes, sure, sure.
So on my Facebook, it's Wendee Lee, WENDEELEE -artist. Please feel free to join me there and shoot me some comments if you got a chance to watch this interview, and to just join us there. And also my Twitter is the same spelling, Wendee Lee, WENDEELEEVO, at Twitter. That's my Twitter account. And thank you very much for tuning in and for caring about this little art form that we all love so much. And I wish you all well, and stay healthy and take care of your mental health, and be well. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much. And to all of our audience, see you later, and bye bye.
See ya.